Inspired by the medieval timber frame homes of England, the Tudor Revival homes brought old world charm to American suburbs in the early 20th century. With their steep gables, signature half timbering and storybook presence, they are instantly recognizable. And in today's episode on Homes Explained, we'll uncover the origins of Tudor Revival, we'll explore the original Tudors almost 1,000 years ago, and we'll show what defines the Tudor Revival, one of the most beloved architectural styles today. To understand Tudor Revival, we first need to go back to look at the original Tudors of England, which were built from the late 15th century all the way through to the early 17th century. Now, these homes were not built for show. They were very practical and made with available materials that they had at the time. And the very distinctive black and white look came from the visual skeleton, which was made of oak beams. And then in between the oak beams, there was an infill, which was called noggin. And most notably, wattle and daub was used, which was kind of a handmade infill, which went between all the timbers. And this was then whitewashed over, creating this very iconic black and white pattern on the outside. In the wealthier homes or public buildings in the later years of the original Tudors, builders did, however, start to add ornamental bracing patterns like chevrons and curved brackets to showcase their skill and the wealth of the homeowner. And in fact, this picture you're seeing now, I snapped this a couple of weeks ago when I was on vacation visiting my family and the area where I grew up. So this is actually taken in Stratford-upon-Avon, the birthplace of Shakespeare, and this original building is probably near on about 800 years old. Another fascinating feature of the original Tudors was something called jettying, where each story overhung the one below. And again, these are photos you're seeing now that I took a couple of weeks ago, and you can clearly see how each higher story comes out about a foot over the one below. So this saved space, it added extra square footage upstairs, and it helped stabilize the building. And there is a popular theory, which you can hear the tour guides telling all the tourists, that jettying was designed to reduce ground level taxation, although there isn't a huge amount of evidence to actually support that. By the late 19th century and early 20th century, American architects began reimagining the Tudor architecture for modern domestic life, and the resulting Tudor Revival movement blended romantic medieval imagery with handcrafted charm, offering individuality, tradition, and a sense of permanence in rapidly growing American suburbs. These homes were built with modern materials and drew heavily upon the historic English Tudor, but they were very much adapted for the American neighborhoods. So what exactly makes a Tudor Revival? Let's take a closer look at the exterior features which define the style. And of course, feature number one is the iconic signature detail of the half timbering. In the original Tudors, timber frames formed the structural skeleton, and the spaces in between were filled with wattle and daub, which is where the half comes from. Only half any given wall was considered to be timber, and the rest was infill. In Tudor Revival, however, the timber is purely decorative, applied over a stucco or a brick veneer to mimic the look of medieval construction. In fact, the iconic black and white, where the dark timbers are contrasted against the white stucco, has probably become the defining feature of the Tudor Revival architectural style. Feature number two was brick cladding, because many of the Tudor Revival homes have brick all on the ground story with half timbering above it. But this isn't just your basic brickwork. Look closely and you'll see many decorative patterns featuring basket weave, herringbone, and even diamond-shaped inlays. So these patterns added an extra level of craftsmanship and depth, setting homes apart and adding an element of individuality. Next up are the decorative chimneys. So oversized chimneys are very much a hallmark of the Tudor Revival style, and in many cases there's more than one per house. They're not just functional, they can be extremely ornate and eye-catching. Look for corbelled brickwork, stone accents, and more decorative brick inlays. They're all designed to add vertical emphasis and a sense of craftsmanship. Feature number 4 are the steeply pitched roofs, often with intersecting gables or an asymmetrical profile. And this design is a historic nod to the rain-shedding needs of medieval England, but in Tudor Revival it became a defining aesthetic feature, adding height, drama and complexity to the roofline. On the inside of the Tudor Revivals, these steep roof lines often mean sloped or vaulted ceilings where the roof shape actually cuts into the living space on the interior. And these angled ceilings create that cosy kind of storybook feel that Tudors are known for, where each individual room often gets its own kind of personality. And finally, on the exterior, we have the leaded windows where small panes of glass are joined together with slender strips of lead. And a particularly iconic version is the diamond pane design, and each individual diamond is actually called a quarrel. These windows didn't just let in the light, but they were fundamental in reinforcing the medieval charm of the whole architectural style. From the outside, Tudor Revival homes have a very romantic story to tell, and the interior continues that narrative, blending traditional craftsmanship with a sense of warmth and enclosure. Step inside and you'll find the rooms feel cosy, characterful, and designed to reflect an earlier, slower pace of life. So let's discover the key interior identifying features of the Tudor Revival. Number 1 are the exposed wooden beams, which you'll often find in living rooms, dining rooms, entry halls, and vaulted upstairs spaces. And while occasionally they're structural, more typically in Tudor Revivals, they are decorative, meant to reinforce the Tudor aesthetic. The beams are often made of oak or pine, and one detail I really love is when you see the faux pegs, which are meant to suggest historic joinery, evoking the look and feel of the English manor house. The second interior feature are plaster walls. So the walls in Tudor Revivals are often finished in smooth or hand-applied plaster, which has usually been left uneven or kind of deliberately imperfect in order to catch the light and mimic the original handmade textures of historic construction. Occasionally too, you'll also find plaster relief detailing above doorways and windows, subtly echoing the Gothic or Elizabethan motifs. And finally are the stone or brick fireplaces. The fireplace is almost always the anchor of the main gathering space, whether it's a formal living room or a cosy den. And they're usually made from brick, limestone or stone with substantial mantles and surrounds. And one thing I'll mention from growing up in the Midlands with all these historic homes, and the home I grew up in was about 400 years old. In the Tudor homes, the fireplaces often had dedicated kind of seating nook around it, often built of the same material that the fireplace is made of. Though that hasn't come up in any of my research, but I can personally attest to that. Though Tudor Revival homes peaked in the 1920s and 30s, their influence has lasted far longer. These homes remain highly sought after for their charm, character and craftsmanship, qualities that stand in contrast to today's more minimalist, mass-produced styles. The style found a natural home in the early suburbs of American cities, particularly in places like Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles, where homeowners were drawn to the romantic European feel. Tudor Revivals helped shape the architectural identity of these growing cities, offering a handcrafted historic alternative to the more utilitarian housing stock, which was mainly in existence there. And while the style fell out of favour after World War II, largely due to construction costs and, of course, changing tastes, Tudor Revival continues to represent a tireless ideal, romantic, historic, rooted and rich with architectural detail. They remain a beloved part of America's built landscape, blending nostalgia with craftsmanship in a way very few other architectural styles can match. Well, I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the Tudor Revival design, and I have to admit this one is one of my favourites. So please don't forget to like, subscribe, share. It really helps out my little channel. And let me know in the comments which architectural style is your favourite. Hopefully I've covered it, but if not, let me know, and maybe you'll see it in one of the future weeks to come. Thanks for watching and see you next time.